A young Zoomer girl has just broken down in tears in her car on TikTok because she doesn't like working.
I cannot stand how the news has been dogging Gen Z and calling them lazy for not wanting to work a 9-to-5 for the rest of their lives. Let me put it in perspective for everybody who's a little confused here, okay? I work 5 days out of the week, 40 hours a week, okay? I do not make enough to live on my own. I would not make enough to pay rent, water, electric, and eat. All by myself. I would not be capable of doing that. 20 years ago when you were getting started, you could live on your own. 20 years ago when you first started, you were able to do everything that I am now struggling to do. Let me add another perspective here. You've been working for 20 years. You have 20 years of working experience behind your belt. You have 20 years of experience in a career that has allowed you to gain raises, to get more money, to profit you in an economy that you created. You can sit here and you can call Gen Z lazy all you want, but I've been working my tail end off just to barely make it by. And respectfully, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life.
So the usual talking points, conservative cable news reaction to this is, listen to this crazy snowflake. She needs to learn how to work hard. 9 to 5, that's only 8 hours of the day. That's not even all that much work. You know, I worked 16 hours a day. I walked uphill both ways in the snow and the sleet. I worked in the coal mines when I was 8 years old, and I worked my way. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's true. I work more than 8 hours a day. And, well, maybe I don't, though. Technically, I do. And if you just log the hours that I'm working on something that pertains to my professional life, it's way more than 8 hours a day. But in another sense, I really don't work at all because I love everything I do and I'd probably do it for free. And so that's great. Now, it wasn't always like that. When I was in my early 20s, I was working plenty of jobs that I didn't really want to do and I wasn't being paid that well for it. And I was, so sure. And over time, if you keep working at a career and maybe you catch some lucky breaks here or there, then, you know, your professional life gets a little bit happier. But it doesn't for everybody. Some people work a job that they hate for their whole lives and they just do it because that's their responsibility. And all of that is fair enough. And we've heard all of that commentary before. The part that no one's focusing on is that part she says right at the beginning of the video. She says, I'm working 8 hours a day. I'm working 40 hours a week, and I can't even afford all of the things that I need to live alone. Why does she want to live alone? Why do you want to live alone? A lot of people do live alone. Some people do it because they don't have any other choice. Or they don't think they have any other choice. Some people do it because they think that they want to do it, but living alone is not ideal. That's not really what you want. Doesn't this girl want to get married? Man is a coupling creature. Don't you want to get marriage is great. Most people are called to marriage. Not everyone is called to marriage. Some people are called to religious life, let's say. But when you don't live alone when you're in religious life, you're not going to get married, but you're going to go live maybe with a religious order. You're going to go live in a rectory with a full community around you. Some people are not called to marriage. Some people are also not called to religious life. Some people live a single life for whatever reason, but often they'll have a roommate, or maybe they'll live with some family member, or at the very least, they will live within a community to be around people. Man is not meant to live alone. Modern liberal society says we're supposed to be totally alone, as independent as you can possibly be. Independence good, dependence bad. Do whatever you want whenever you want to do it, good. Constrain yourselves to the rules of society, bad. But that's just wrong. You are not supposed to be completely 100% self-sufficient and go live in the woods somewhere. It's not how society is supposed to work. This woman is complaining about something that she thinks she desires that is totally unnatural and not conducive to her flourishing. I'm not saying there aren't problems with the political economy, and I'm not saying there aren't ways to, have debates over wages, but in the good old days, families lived together. They were bigger families. They lived together for longer, and then they got married much, much younger, and then they built new families, and they built strong, thriving communities. And we lived as citizens and social creatures. Now we don't, and it creates all sorts of problems. Yeah, you're right. There is something really wrong with working full-time and not being able to have everything that you need. Maybe we need different things than modern society tells us that we do. You remember when that airplane just kind of like exploded the other day? An American airplane. This was an Alaska Airlines flight that was going from Oregon to California. And then they get to 16,000 feet and part of the wall just blows off the plane. And they managed to land safely, but obviously it was a very dangerous situation. So now the National Transportation Safety Board is explaining how that kind of third world accident could happen in America.
Now, our systems group began looking at all the aircraft systems. They documented the entire flight deck, and they asked about the auto pressurization fail light that did illuminate in 3 previous flights. There was a decision by Alaska Airlines to a restriction, actually, they put in place. They call it an ETOPS restriction that prevented that plane from being flown to Hawaii over water, so that it could, if some light did illuminate, it could return very quickly to an airport.
So they knew about this? What the NTSB is saying is Alaska Airlines knew that there were major mechanical problems with the plane, so much so that they feared that if they flew the airplane over the Pacific Ocean where there was nowhere nearby to land, the plane could go down and everyone would die. They knew that there were pressurization problems. They knew that the side of the plane could blow off. So they said, okay, the thing we should do here is not retire the plane and get a new plane. What we'll do is we'll just fly it from Oregon to California. This happened multiple times. I said, well, look, it'd be very awkward if a light were to go off while we were over the ocean. What if half the plane blew off? I don't know. Wouldn't that seems like that's the real fear here. And that's what happened. Not a whole half the plane, but a major chunk of one side of the plane blew off. Someone's shirt was ripped off of him. A teddy bear flew out the window. The air masks came down. Everybody started freaking out. And they luckily, thankfully, thank God, managed to land the plane. What kind of incompetence is required at private industry and at the level of the federal government to allow this many warning signs to go completely unheeded? Things are breaking down. If you've ever traveled anywhere around the world, in Europe, certainly in third world countries, you'll notice that one of the big things that we take for granted in America is just that things kind of function. For all the ideological strife and all the battles and all the policy preferences that we might have and we might not get and blah, 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 at least things kind of work. The cops, at least a few years ago, would show up on time. At least until a few years ago, food supply systems worked just fine. At least until a few years ago, there was generally rule of law. At least the airplanes worked, and the roads worked and things. The society just moved. And we are in for a very rude awakening because for decades now, we have eschewed basic competency training in favor of highly ideological so-called education systems, just indoctrination and a bunch of liberal gobbledygook. And we've neglected the basic functions that allow society to work. Expect more doors to blow off more airplanes. If you ask me, that was an excellent clip. It was really good and edifying and entertaining and educational and really handsome. If you want more of them, you've got to ring the bell and subscribe to my YouTube channel right now.